Thank you. You think maybe the panic buttons are going off in the Capitol today? You think maybe they came down here and saw this and they understand if the panic buttons aren't going off, they better be soon. I want to tell you, it's such an honor to be invited here to speak to you. This is the new center of patriotism in this country. I've said it so many times. Used to be Boston. Used to be Boston. This is the new center of democracy. I want to talk to you about a couple things today. You know, baby boomers and Xers and millennials, all of which are in this room some form or fashion. We used to watch those Metro-Goldwyn movies, you know, those Westerns. And it was always a story where the good guys are pinned down, you know. The good guys are pinned down, they're huddled up behind their wagons, bullets are flying, they're out of food, there's no water left, everybody's feeling real despair, and it looks like it might be over. We all grew up watching those movies, didn't we? But the other thing we grew up with is, watching those movies, is there was always an ending where the cavalry was coming, right? Cavalry would come up over the hill. There'd be the good guy flags would be flying. There'd be bullets flying. The bad guys would be running away. High fives, hallelujahs everywhere. And it was always a happy ending. And we grew up, didn't we, believing that the cavalry's coming. I want to talk to you today about the idea there's no cavalry. I want to talk to you about the idea you don't need a cavalry, that you don't need anybody to save you. I want you to have a sense of how strong you are. I want you to have a sense of every time that they talk about this place, Madison, every time they talk about Wisconsin, you are the cavalry. Now that's a twist, isn't it? See, you're always waiting for that special moment. You're always waiting for that special moment when the cavalry's coming. But the rest of the country sees you as their salvation. The rest of the country believes if there's going to be salvation, if we're going to survive what we're being faced with, it's going to start right up here. That is hard for you to believe. That is a hell of a responsibility. But I've been doing media business for a long time. I have interviewed, I can't even tell you the number of interviews I've done, Bobby Kennedy and myself and Sam Cedar over the last 11 years. And you ought to hear what the best of the best have to say about you. Look to your left and look to your right. You're the cavalry. Now, I know that's a hell of a responsibility, but it's the truth. And we'd always wait, wouldn't we? There was always going to be, in this narrative, there was always going to be somebody to pull us out. And right now, the country is pinned down. Okay? We're pinned down. We are huddled up behind the wagons. And the bandits, well, they're dressed up in Armani suits. The bandits people we have to worry about are inheritance billionaires. The bandits look different. The bandits are multinational corporations, and they look different, but they're the same bandits that have always had us huddled up behind the wagons. And what we have to understand is when we face that, we face this dysfunctional traditional media. How do you get any more dysfunctional than what's happening here? How do you get more dysfunctional than that? If you don't read John, and you don't read Greg Palast, and you don't find out what's really happening, you don't know what's going on in this world, do you? And that's just the truth. But that's part of the attack. That's part of the onslaught of what we're being faced with. The good guys in this reality narrative, ladies and gentlemen, we are huddled up behind the wagons. And the people that are coming up to us and that threaten us, well, the thing they threaten us with is they have a $1,000 an hour K Street lobbyist by their side, and they've got their veluti loafers on, and they're walking the halls of Congress, and they are punishing us in some way every day. And we can either say we can take it, We can either rise to the occasion and understand there is nobody coming. There's nobody that's going to pull the sword. We all want a hero, don't we? Everybody in this room, we've been trained to want a hero. Somebody's going to come and they're going to pull a damn sword out of a stone. It's not going to happen. That's Disney World. It's not going to happen. And once you can get that in your head, once you can say, I'm good with that, I'm okay with that. If I got to pull the sword out of the stone, I can do that. If I have to be the cavalry that's going to save my brother and my sister, I can do that. But you have to get here. You have to get here. You have to feel it in your heart that there's no cavalry coming, that it's up to you. These weapons that they use against us in this onslaught, they're far more dangerous than what you see in a Metro-Goldwyn movie. These are threats. These are weapons that don't just cause us injury. These are weapons that will cause your children and their children and a generation after generation injury forever. And the battle is right here. The line is in the sand right here. Yesterday, you had one of the leaders of the Republican Party say, if Mitt doesn't win, put a fork in us as a Republican Party. Well, hell, let's put a fork in them. It is time. It is time, and you are the cavalry, and you got 50 days to do it. Don't believe anybody's going to do it for you. I love you. Every day I'm on the air talking about this place, this island of democracy. It just makes me feel so good. I love you. I love what you stand for. I had the opportunity over the years to interview, anytime you can interview somebody the caliber of Nichols or Howard Zinn or Chris Hedges or Chalmers Johnson, Studs Terkel. I've interviewed all those people. And I want to talk to you about a theory they had. I want to talk to you about what they believe happens in an empire in a demise. What they believe happens in an empire that's crumbling around them. There are certain things that happen that every one of them said is exactly the same, whether it happens here, whether it happens in Spain, whether it happens in Italy, South America, Asia, it's all the same thing. When an empire crumbles, certain things happen. And the first thing that happens is the affluent, the people that have, the people in charge, that 1%. The people who control most every damn thing in this country right now, they want more. They go into a greed frenzy. Every one of these writers describe it as a greed frenzy. If you drill down to what they say, it is a frenzy. Chris Hedges says, in the demise of the empire, if we don't turn it around and we allow it to crumble, in that period, there is a frenzy and the society, the culture goes insane. He described it as it's the same thing as a big rat fighting for the last bit of food in a cage, willing to kill the other mice to get to the food. That wasn't just one of these great thinkers that said that. That wasn't one of them. That was every one that I just named. Every one of them. So I listen when they say that. They say there's a greed frenzy taking place in America right now where 400 billionaires control 40% of all America's wealth. They say there's a greed frenzy taking place that if we have to interrupt, we have to change, we have to do it now. Where the top 400 earners in the U.S. saw their income increase by 400% and they saw their taxes decrease by 40%. 30 major corporations paid no taxes. 50 million people went into the poverty zone. They described that as an empire that's crumbling. They said that is how an empire crumbles. And we are there. And the worst thing we can do, it's like a pilot flying a plane. He's lost the first engine, the second engine sputtering, and he denies what's happening. You don't deny it here. But your leadership has to be a message for the rest of the country. They have to see what you know. You don't deny it. That's why you're here in this room right now. You can't deny it. Their goal in this greed frenzy is to say, we have to control the media, we have to control Wall Street, we have to control the politics, we have to control the culture. They are in their last effort to grab up. Grab up. Think of yourself as a colony. Now, this is tough to do. Think of the term colonization. When you think of colonization, you think of a European country or America going down to South Africa or going to South America and extracting all their resources and then saying, well, hell with you, we're taking everything you got. You know what the bad news is? We're being colonized. We're being colonized. Now, that's hard to get in your head, but we're being colonized. We're being colonized by multi-conglomerate corporations, multinational corporations that don't live here. And you know what? They don't live in Germany. They don't live in Italy. They don't live anywhere. They are like a locust descending on you and extracting everything they can. They're treating you as a colony. And we've never thought of ourselves like that. We've never been able to put that in our head. We're being colonized? Yes. In a sense, that's what's happening. They're extracting your labor. They're extracting our resources. They're extracting the very best we have because we are in demise and they're taking advantage of it. And many of us don't see it. The top 1%, they see it. They know what's happening. Move on quickly here. Here's what we have to think about. American Blog, I saw an article in it not long ago. It was a brilliant article. It says, what do we do about it? It says, what we do is we have to understand that we are a movement. Okay? A movement, a total movement. There is no labor element alone. There's no women's rights element alone. There's no environmental element alone. There's no judicial element alone. We're all connected. And the point is, Part A connects to Part B, connects to Part C. Add damn decal if you want it, put wheels on it, whatever you want to do. But we're all part of a movement. And let me give you an example. Let me tell you what you did. Let me talk about you, okay? Because I'm not from around here. You probably tell by my way I speak, but I'm not from around here. But here's what I've learned. I look at the women's movement in this country, where the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Republican-controlled U.S. Chamber of Commerce, thinks it's appropriate that a woman in this country should make 23% less than what a man makes working the same job with the same qualifications, everything being the same, but she ought to be paid 23% less. Now, that's just how it is, but what did you do about it? Let me tell you what you did. A lot of times we don't even miss right amongst you what happened. What changed that? What are we supposed to say to that woman that has to endure that? That's your problem? Not if we're a movement. If we're a movement, we're saying your problem is our problem. And that's what you did in this great state. When you went there and you showed up for teachers, you weren't teachers. Some of you didn't even have kids in school. You had other things to do, but you showed up because you thought of yourself as a movement. And you did the same thing as women, for women. When you had, listen, March, you remember this, Congress, you had the Republicans, except every Republican on the committee except Olympia Snowe says that we need to have a law that says a woman can't get a mammogram, a woman can't get birth control pills if her employer thinks it's immoral. A woman can't get diabetes treatment if the employer thinks it's normal. Now, do you think that just went away by itself? No. You know why it went away? Because of you. Because of what you did. Because you understood that her problem was your problem. Men in this room, maybe not married, maybe no connection other than the fact you understood. That's my fight too. They showed up for me on my union fight, and I'm going to show up for them on their fight. That's what you understood, that we're connected. We're all connected in this effort. What about when the half human and the half hyena, Rush Limbaugh, attacked Sandra Fluke? Sandra Fluke was just up there in Washington. She was trying to say, we need to treat people with decency. We need to treat women with decency. What did you do to the half hyena? You tried to put him out of business because you understood you were connected to what was going on there. You understood what was happening to women affected the movement. The movement is all of us. It's not one part of us. And you understood that. It was your letters and your blogs. It was your outrage. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes. You were there, huddled up behind the wagon and said, okay, it's time. They got somebody over here on our flank, and we can't leave any flank unprotected. It's time. You rallied us. You rallied me. Made me so damn mad to not get your emails. What about this, Pap? What about this? You just made me madder and madder. By the time I was on the next day, I was a crazy man. But I was beating them all up about the head. You rallied me. And hopefully I rally you. That's how a movement works. We're all joined together. Or when that selfish, buffoonish, oafish character, Todd Aiken, told us that, you know what? Women have a mystical physiology. And that when a man brutally rapes a woman, that mystical physiology kicks in place and she can't get pregnant. Your outrage didn't just embarrass him, it embarrassed every crazy person in this country that still doesn't have enough sense to take that damn card, registration card, Republican voter registration card out of their pocket, tear the son of a bitch up and throw it away. You shame them. You shame them. That's what you did. Your actions shamed them because you understood your effort is connected to their effort. And so you also told out of that outrage. What happened in that outrage? It started with your blogs. It started with your internet sites. It started with your letters to the editor. It started with your telephone calls. It started with you writing letters to producers at television stations. It started with you talking to your Congress people and your senators, and you said, I can't abide by that. I just can't abide by that. I can't abide by people treating people like that. But that's what you did, and you raised all of us up. And you got us from our little huddle position behind the wagons. You said, it's time. It's time to rally now. And you rallied us. And what you did is you told us about Paul Ryan. You said, hey, there's more to the story here, baby. It ain't just Todd Aiken. You told us the story about Paul Ryan, who actually signed a bill with Todd Aiken that said a woman may not get an abortion whether she is a victim of rape or whether incest has taken place. She may be prosecuted for getting an abortion. You called that to our attention. You know, I listened to another one of those apologies by the Republicans. Crazy people I get all kinds of stuff. You just can't imagine. Emails and letters, but the latest thing has been an apology, kind of. The apology has been, oh no, Paul Ryan isn't one of us. Todd Aiken isn't one of us. He's different. This is not what the Republican Party actually represents. It's exactly what the Republican Party represents. Over the years, I've been able to do story after story about women and how they're victimized. Every single time, that victimization somehow ties in to the grand old party. The worst story I want you to think about this. The worst story I ever heard, worst story I ever covered, was when a 19-year-old, 2009, 19-year-old Jamie Lee Jones worked for KBR. She was gang raped by KBR management. No mystery about who it was. It was people way up in the food chain, gang raped. And then after she was gang raped, she was put in a 5x6 shipping container. And she was drugged. And she needed medical care, and she was bleeding internally and externally. She was in shock. And they left her there because they thought she was going to die. And they thought they could dispose of the body so there wasn't any ugly image that tied up the KBR and Cheney and the Republicans, the disgusting people who run KBR. So they thought we could make this go away. But you know what happened? Made it even worse. That same year, 30 Republicans voted. They had the chance to make a decision. 30 Republicans voted on this idea. We should not allow Jamie Lee Jones to tell her story publicly. We should not allow Jamie Lee Jones to have a trial with a jury where they hear not about Jamie Lee Jones, but they hear about KBR's long history of abuse of women, case after case after case. We should not allow a trial to take place. Every single one of those Republicans, go look at it. 68-30 was the vote. Website, if you want to find out who these characters are, republicansforrape.org. Go take a look at that. Every one of them put their careers, their relationship with these corporate thugs, their sugar daddy corporate thugs, they put their relationship with those people above the decency, above the way that they regard their mothers and their sisters and their daughters. They thought that was more important. So when I hear these apologies about, oh, well, you know, we think different. This thing about women and we're down on women. You think you can dress up that Romney woman and put her in a pretty red dress and put her up on stage and say, women, I feel your pain. I'm with you. That the American public is buying into that once they understand what this party's all about. This is not, these aren't isolated incidents. This isn't an isolated instance of Todd Aiken or Paul Ryan or this horrible saga I just told you about. And just in case they weren't sure whether this thing that happened to Jamie Lee was legitimate rape, as Paul Ryan likes to put it, let me tell you something. These 30 senators who voted on this knew the details. They knew she'd been repeatedly sodomized, that her 19-year-old body needed reconstructive surgery. You can change all that. You can change all that by understanding you are joined at the hip with Jamie Lee. That everything you do is joined at the hip with that person next to you who has a labor effort, that you have to help them with labor, a teacher who's lost her job. You're joined at the hip. And I just ask you to understand this. There's no cavalry. We got to re-elect Obama, but even if we do, he's not going to pull the sword out of the stone. And that's hard for us to get in our heads. But we have to understand that if we want to have a sustainable, progressive movement in America. Thank you.